Hi guys, Miss Rock and Mr. Guinea here. I hope you had a great spring break. I missed sending you videos. Mr. Guinea had a little accident on our last story where he dressed up as a unicorn. He fell off the table and lost his tooth. He wasn't able to eat big carrots for a few weeks, but he's feeling much better, and he wanted you to hear a story inspired by his little mishap. As you can see, he's A-okay now. This story he picked out for me to read to you is Peppa Pig, the Tooth Fairy. He wanted me to read this book because he lost a tooth just like Peppa. Once upon a time, there was a clever little pig named Peppa. She was very proud of her teeth. Peppa and her brother George knew how to take care of their teeth. They brushed them every morning and every evening. Brush, brush, brush. Peppa and George loved playing dentist. Peppa would pretend to be the dentist and George would be her assistant. George's toy dinosaur was the patient. "What lovely clean teeth you have, Mr. Dinosaur," Peppa smiled. Grrr. One day, after playing their dentist game, Peppa and George were eating their dinner. Suddenly, something fell onto Peppa's plate. Clatter, clatter. It made Peppa jump. "What's that?" she asked. "Ho, ho, it's a tooth," Daddy Pig laughed. "But where is it from?" asked Peppa. So here's her family eating around the table, and Peppa lost a tooth. "Why don't you look in the mirror?" said Mummy Pig. Peppa looked. She had a big gap in her teeth. "Oh no," Peppa cried. "Do we need to go see Dr. Elephant?" "Ho, ho, ho. No," said Mummy Pig. "It's just a baby tooth. It's meant to fall out." I know some of you have already lost your teeth. "A baby tooth? What's that?" asked Peppa. "A baby tooth is a tooth that falls out when you're young," explained Mummy Pig. "A new one will grow in its place." "What should I do with my baby tooth?" asked Peppa. "If you place it under your pillow, the tooth fairy will come. She will take your tooth and leave you a shiny new coin." Peppa seems to be very excited by that idea. That evening, while Peppa watched television with her family, she kept thinking about the tooth fairy. "When I grow up, I want to be a tooth fairy," said Peppa. Daddy Pig chuckled. "What about you, George?" asked Daddy. George pointed at his dinosaur. "Dinosaur," he growled. "Hee, hee, hee." Mr. Guinea found the bag of carrots. "Come on, George," shouted Peppa. "We don't want to miss the tooth fairy." They both ran upstairs to get ready for bed. "What are you doing, Peppa?" asked Daddy Pig. Peppa was carefully brushing her baby tooth. "I want it to be nice and clean for the tooth fairy," Peppa said. She's even scrubbing her tooth that fell out. Peppa tucked the tooth under her pillow. "Are you sure the tooth fairy will be able to find it?" she asked. "I promise," said Mummy Pig. "Just you wait and see." Good night, Peppa and George. Good night, Mummy and Daddy Pig. Hee, hee, hee. "I'm going to wait up all night for the tooth fairy," Peppa said. "George, let's not sleep." George smiled and nodded. Peppa waited and waited. Shh, shh. Who do you think fell asleep? George was tired. Peppa could hear something. Is that the tooth fairy? Peppa wondered. George, she whispered, did you hear that? Can you see the tooth fairy? She climbed down to look at George. He was fast asleep. He was making all those noises. I am much better at staying awake than George, Peppa sighed. She settled back into her bed. After a while, her eyes started to close. She quickly opened them again. I'm going to stay awake to see the tooth fairy, Peppa said firmly to herself. But soon she was fast asleep. Shh. Shh. Tinkle, tinkle. What was that? It was the tooth fairy. Hello, Peppa, she whispered. Would you like a coin in exchange for your tooth? The tooth fairy gently took Peppa's tooth out from under her pillow and put a shiny coin in its place. What a lovely, clean tooth, the fairy said. Thank you so very much. Flutter, flutter, flutter. She flew away. The next morning, Peppa found the shiny coin under her pillow. Mummy, the tooth fairy came after all, she shouted, jumping up and down. Oh, I wish I had seen the tooth fairy, Peppa sighed. Next time, I'm definitely going to stay awake all night. Hee-hee! Well, Mr. Guinea and I are very excited that you listened to this story. And I want you to know Mr. Guinea is just fine. All of his teeth have grown back. He's a rodent. He wanted to say, I miss you. Miss Paris and Miss Wallace miss you also. Bye, guys.